भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयम् उदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Actually, can Anand Bihari Prabhu or Amrit Kishori Mataji make me co-host so that I can share my screen?
Okay, you should be able to.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu.
Okay.
So today we are reading from the 10th canto, 74th chapter, which is entitled as The Deliverance of Shishupal at the Rajasuya Sacrifice. And we'll be covering verses 37 to 43 today. ब्रह्मर्षि सेवितान् देशान् हित्वैते ब्रह्मवर्चसं समुद्रं दुर्गम् आश्रित्य बाधन्ते बाधन्ते दस्यवः प्रजः. Translation: These Yadavas have abandoned the holy lands inhabited by saintly sages and have instead taken shelter of a fortress in the sea, a place where no Brahmanical principles are observed. There, just like thieves, they harass their subjects. Purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The words Brahmarshi Sevitan Deshan, holy lands inhabited by saintly sages, allude to the district of Mathura. Srila Prabhupada writes, Shishupal went crazy because of Krishna's being elected the supreme, first worshipped person in that meeting. And he spoke so irresponsibly that it appeared that he had lost all his good fortune. Evam adinya abhadrani babhashe nashtamangalah novacha kinchid bhagavan yatha simha shivarutam. Shukadeva Goswami continued, bereft of all good fortune, Shishupal spoke these words and other insults, but the Supreme Lord said nothing, just as a lion ignores a jackal's cry. Bhagavan nindanam shrutva dhusam tatsabhasadah karnau pidhaya nirjagmuhu shapantaschedipam rusha. Upon hearing such intolerable blasphemy of the Lord, several members of the assembly covered their ears and walked out, angrily cursing the king of Chedi. Nindam bhagavatah shranvams tatparasya janasya va tato napaiti yasopi yatya adha shukratachchutah. Anyone who fails to immediately leave the place where he hears criticism of the Supreme Lord or his faithful devotee will certainly fall down, bereft of his pious credit. Tatah Pandu Sutah Kruddha Matsya Kaikaya Shrinjayah Udayudhaha Samutasthuhu Shishupala Jighamsavaha. Then the sons of Pandu became furious, and together with the warriors of the Matsya, Kaikaya, and Shrinjaya clans, they rose up from their seats with weapons poised, ready to kill Shishupal. Tataschaidyastva sambhranto जग्रे खड्ग जग्रे खड्ग चर्मणि भर्त्सयन् कृष्णपक्षीयान् राज्ञः सदसि भारत. Undaunted, Shishupal then took up his sword and shield in the midst of all the assembled kings, O Bharata, and hurled insults at those who sided with Lord Krishna. तावद् उत्थाय भगवान् स्वान् निवार्य स्वयं रुषा शिर शूरान्तचक्रेण जहार पततो रिपुः. At that point, the Supreme Lord stood up and checked his devotees. He then angrily sent forth his razor sharp disc and severed the head of his enemy as he was attacking. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the Lord's explains the Lord's action as follows. If Lord Krishna had done nothing, there probably would have been a savage fight on the sacrificial grounds, and thus the whole ceremony would have been drenched in blood, spoiling the sanctified atmosphere. Therefore, in order to protect the Rajasuya sacrifice of Krishna's beloved devotee Yudhishthir, the Lord immediately severed Shishupal's head with his razor sharp disc in such a way that not a drop of blood fell within the sacrificial grounds. उमज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः. श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं. नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिन् इति नामिने. नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवास आदि गौर भक्तवृंद. हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे. मुखं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघायते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारणम्. So Anand Bihari Prabhu mentioned that I have everything that I need for the class, but actually there is one thing also that I need, that is your all your blessings, especially the blessings of all the senior Vaishnavas, Adi Purush Prabhu, Arjuna Prabhu, and everyone, so that I can speak something here in line with the Guru Parampara with a humble mood of service, so that we can all hold hands together and go close to Krishna. So this is the climax of this pastime of Lord Krishna slaying Shishupal. So it is said that when we describe someone, the description talks more about our own consciousness than the reality of the person we are describing. So Chaitanya Charan Prabhu says, people don't see the world as it is, they see the world as they are. So this is very interesting. A fact can be expressed in various ways, depending on what the person who is speaking that fact really wants to bring out, right? For example, one can say, he has had problems before, but don't worry, everything is good now and he's stable. Okay, this is one way of saying this sentence, right? Or another way of saying a sentence, saying the same thing by remaining true to the facts, but by being untrue to the spirit of it, is to say, he seems to be stable now, but you should know that he has had issues before. So now here the person is, staying true to the facts, but then completely distorting the spirit. And, so this talks about more about the person who is saying this statement rather than the person who is being described in the sentence, right? And here in this pastime, we see a very stark example in Shishupal about how facts can be distorted. He's taking events in the life of Krishna and expressing them in such a way so as to minimize Krishna's importance and to find faults in him. And not only him, he starts finding fault with the whole Yadu dynasty. So that is what Shishupal is doing. And this is actually the last verse where Shishupal is criticizing Krishna. There was a series of verses before this. But yeah, so some background about Shishupal, right? He was always critical of Krishna. So on I guess on one level, Shishupal is actually the incarnation of Jaya, I think Jaya or Vijay, who were the gatekeepers of Vaikuntha, right? And then they got cursed, and they were were to be born as demons. So Shishupal and Dantavakra is the third incarnation of Jaya and Vijay as demons in the material world. And that is why he was very inimical to Krishna, critical of Krishna right since his birth. And it was just his nature to completely go against Krishna. And his criticism actually about for Krishna got a renewed vigor when he came back from the wedding altar empty-handed. We know how Krishna kidnapped Rukmini. Rukmini was supposed to be married to Shishupal, and Krishna kidnapped Rukmini and got married to her. And then, although Shishupal tried with all his might, his entire army to try to defeat Krishna and win Rukmini back, he could not do so. So he was seething with anger, and his criticism, his anger towards Krishna got a renewed vigor through that incident. And his disappointment is clearly seen, in the fact that Jarasandha, his friend, tried to pacify him using words that outwardly seemed like spiritual wisdom, but actually lacked the right motivation. So, but in any case, so then Shishupal had this critical tendency towards Krishna, but Shishupal did not have any, animosity towards the Pandavas. So for this Rajasuya sacrifice that is happening here, it is a sacrifice that is to be performed by the emperor of the whole world, the entire Earth planet. And in order for the emperor of the entire Earth planet to be able to do this sacrifice, he has to first prove himself to be the emperor of the Earth, right? And in that, to that end, this king, the emperor of the world, has to either defeat the kings who are against him or win the approval or the tributes of all the kings that are on his side in the entire world, right? Only when everyone agrees that he is to be worshipped as the emperor, and only then he can perform the Rajasuya sacrifice. So knowing this, Yudhishthir sent his four brothers, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakul, and Sahadev, in four directions to either get the approval of the kings there, bring them on their side, or defeat them if they are not on his side. So Arjuna was the one who went to Shishupal. And at that time, Shishupal, he said he readily agreed to pay tribute to Yudhishthir Maharaj. And he readily agreed to attend a Rajasuya sacrifice. So he said, "You Pandavas are virtuous people, and I don't mind I don't mind Yudhishthir being the emperor of the world. No worries. So I'll attend the Rajasuya sacrifice." So everything was going good. But the thing that triggered him the most was that the person whom he had hated the most in his entire life, who took his, supposed to be wife away and, got married to her, receiving the highest honor of the Agra Puja during this Rajasuya sacrifice, that made him go crazy. That made him go berserk. That's what Prabhupada writes. That made him go crazy, seeing Krishna being offered the highest worship. And then he started speaking ill words about Krishna, completely trying to assassinate Krishna's character. Right? And in this particular verse 37, he is criticizing the fact that Krishna left Mathura and moved to Dwarka along with his citizens. Right? And he's like speculating as to what's going on there. He's saying that Krishna is harassing the people, and Krishna moved away from the Brahminical culture, and things of that nature. So although he's getting the fact right, kind of, in the sense that yes, they did move to Dwarka, but he's distorting them in such a negative way that he's totally ignoring the real reason for Krishna to move to Dwarka. So the real reason for Krishna moving to Dwarka, that the acharyas explain, is that Krishna wanted to actually protect Vrindavan. So now Mathura, if anyone has been to Vrindavan, you will, most of the times we might pass through Mathura, or but in any case, Mathura is very close to Vrindavan, so they're not very far apart. And now when Krishna, when these demoniac forces of of these kings, they would attack Mathura to defeat Krishna. They would attack from various sides, and often they would pass through Vrindavan to get to Mathura. And when they would pass through Vrindavan to get to Mathura, they would upset the peace and tranquility in Vrindavan. So that is what Krishna did not want. So as a long-term solution, Krishna thought, okay, if we move to Dwarka, then Vrindavan will be protected. So that is why Krishna moved to Dwarka along with his citizens. But Shishupal is completely ignoring that fact, right? Another flaw in Shishupal's statement here is that he is restricting spirituality to a particular geographical location. So, as per him, only the people who are in the Indian subcontinent, so to say, are in the Brahminical culture, and anybody who moves away from there, they are actually, outcasts. Is what he's implying here, right? But see, here it says, holy lands inhabited by saintly sages allude to the district of Mathura in the purport of verse 37, right? So he's restricting the transcendence of spiritual life only to a particular geographical region. That is again a flaw that Shishupal is doing. But then we see that that is not really the case, because you can't do that. Love for Krishna is not restricted to a particular demographic or a particular geographical region, because and Prabhupada proved that without a doubt, when he took Krishna, when he took bhakti in his heart, he brought it to the Western world and transformed the entire world. Right? So again, that is one of the flaws in this statement that Shishupal is making. And then again, coming back to the pastime. So, although Krishna himself remained unaffected by such criticism that was being leveled against him, he saw that the Pandavas and many other kings who were devotees of Krishna, they could not bear being criticized. I mean, bear Krishna being criticized. And in order to retaliate, they raised their swords to go and fight with Shishupal. And it is said here in one of the verses that whoever hears the criticism of the Lord or his devotees, and is where is that verse? That is 40. Anyone who fails to immediately leave the place where he hears the criticism of the Supreme Lord or his faithful devotee will certain fall down, bereft of his pious credit. So, knowing that, some people fled, some people just moved, went away from there. They didn't bear to hear Krishna being criticized. On the other hand, some Kshatriyas like the Pandavas and others, they were ready to fight. Right? Sahadev, Bhishma, Bhima, they even criticized Shishupal back for his words, for his impudent behavior. And then there was, they were all ready to fight. And even Shishupal was being very unrealistic. He saw that all these kings are rising and, taking out, drawing their swords to fight with him. But he's not thinking whether he'll be able to fight them. He's like, no worry. He has gone crazy already. And then he thinks that he can defeat everyone. So he's also ready to fight. Now, when this was happening, Krishna thought that if they fight and there is a bloodshed here, this sacred, sanctified place where Yudhishthir Maharaj has performed a Rajasuya sacrifice will be defiled by bloodshed. And he did not want that, because Krishna is a protector of his devotees and he wanted to protect Yudhishthir Maharaj and what Yudhishthir Maharaj was trying to do by being a dharmic king in the world. And that is the reason Krishna then decided to take action. And that's when he employs the Sudarshan disc to go and chop off Shishupal's head. And it is said in the verse that, not even a single drop of blood fell on the ground. Thus, the sanctity of the sacrifice was maintained by the supreme mercy of Krishna. And of course, the subsequent verses will describe how Shishupal's soul merged with Krishna and how Shishupal achieved the liberation of from material existence because of being killed by Krishna personally. But anyway, so this fault-finding tendency, right, is something that this criticizing tendency is something I wanted to discuss about today, right? So criticism can be on two levels. One is it can be inside of us, right? There is a cynic, there is a skeptic inside all of us, and how that cynic manifests itself is that we might often see things around us and we might find faults with those things. And this is something I've often caught myself doing, that I'm not I'm not connected to that thing in any way. I don't have the responsibility of that thing whatsoever. But why is this thing like this? It should not be like this. And then I even question, the people involved. Why is it like this? And or we may see certain people around us behaving in a certain way, right? We may have had one impression of someone, but then if they don't, again, how we see the world is, we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. If we have formed an impression about someone, if we have formed a, a framework about someone in our own minds, and if that person doesn't fit into that framework, or goes away from that for some reason, for whatever behavior they do, then we start finding faults. How can this be, right? How can this person do this? And so although even that criticism may not come out as words or actions often, right, but we may be harboring them in our minds, and we may be harboring them for years and years together, and some at one point it just erupts as a volcano. So this cynic, this skeptic is inside all of us. And of course, this is not to say that when we are in a position of authority, when we are in a position of responsibility, and we can actually do something about certain things that we see around us, we can actually improve, we can actually take action and improve things. That time, of course, we should not just keep quiet and overlook those facts, thinking that, oh, I should not find faults, right? But then, in any case, we are talking here about fault finding where we don't have any role to play, but we let the mind to get hooked to those faults unnecessarily. So, yeah, so we need to consciously be on guard for such tendencies. Yeah, I mean, including me. This is a big lesson for me when I was reading this and hearing few classes by devotees, that we need to be consciously on guard for such tendencies of our mind. And we should try as much as possible not to find fault with others. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita 16.2 that one of the qualities of someone who is endowed with a divine nature is that they have an aversion to fault finding. So it is interesting. Yeah. So, I mean, there are many kinds of aversions. And Krishna says attachment and aversions are actually the two sides of the same coin. But then aversion to fault finding is actually a good thing, is what Krishna is mentioning here in 16.2. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is that pastime where a Brahmana comes to Lord Chaitanya and apologizes Lord Chaitanya for his past criticism of Mahaprabhu. So he expresses that he's very repentful, and he's in a sincere mood. He's apologizing to Lord Chaitanya that, I thought such wrong things about you. I thought you were a sentimentalist. I thought what you were doing, it is on Shastric and whatnot. But then at that time, Mahaprabhu saw the sincerity of this Brahmana, and then he said that famous statement: "With the same mouth that you drank the poison of criticism and fault finding, with that same mouth, now you drink the nectar of appreciation and glorification." That's what Mahaprabhu says. So it is often said that the antidote to envy is appreciation. And we can try to consciously appreciate the good in others, the sacrifices that they've made to come closer to Krishna, and so on. So that is very important. And when we do that, we will find that our heart has started to soften, and we are, and even our relationship with the other person will get enriched in a very, very heartful way, very, very fulfilling way, when we try to consciously appreciate the good in others. And what do we need to appreciate? What do we need to do to be able to appreciate the good in others? It is very simple. We just need to be observant. We just need to be observant. If we are just observant, if we are just seeing things around us with a very sincere background motivation of um, glorifying everyone, appreciating everyone, then we Krishna will reveal reasons to us for glorifying others, right? So Krishna is he's bhavagrahi. If we are in a framework of finding faults, Krishna will, enable us to find faults in the best of things in the world. But at the same time, if we want to really find the good in others, then Krishna will reveal the good in even, what might be considered as the worst thing in the world. And the pure devotee is the epitome of that, because the pure devotee is known as a Paramahamsa. So Paramahamsa, it's very important, the etymology of the word Paramahamsa. We often say, oh, this Prahlad Maharaj was a Paramahamsa and all that. So what does a Paramahamsa mean? A Hamsa is a swan. A swan, when it has to, it has to eat, there is, and it tries to find its food in the river, and the river is flowing, and there are so many wasteful things flowing in the river. There are, fishes, there is trash, there is garbage, everything. But the swan is able to expertly overlook all that and find the exact food that it's trying to find, and then it eats that, it picks that. So the hamsa is an animal that tries to find the good, in heaps of, bad, or trash or whatnot. Similarly, the paramahamsa devotee, who is like the topmost swan, he finds the best in everyone. And that is what Prabhupada did. Prabhupada saw, he was a Paramahamsa, and he saw the potential for each and every hippie to become a pure devotee of Krishna. I mean, that is the kind of level that Prabhupada is operating at. He's seeing that potential in everyone. He's seeing that potential to become great devotees of Krishna and going closer to Krishna, despite whatever faults that were there on an external level. Right. So that is one thing, right? One level of criticism, where, the cynic inside of us. And then sometimes, now moving on to the other part of criticism, sometimes we find ourselves on the receiving end of criticism. Right? So Krishna found himself on the receiving end of the criticism here, Shishupal's criticism. So how do we deal with such criticism, right? So first of all, we try to see from whom that criticism is coming. If that criticism is coming, or from a well-wisher like our mentor, our guru, etc., then we may want to consider their words, because they are actually, they wish for our well-being. It's not that they have any ulterior motive. They genuinely wish for our well-being, and in that consciousness they are giving us some feedback, some criticism. So definitely that is something we should consider and act upon, right? On the other hand, sometimes we encounter criticism from someone who may not be that important for us, who may not hold a position of an importance in our lives. In such cases, what can we do, right? Typically there are three things. This is again Chaitanya Charan Prabhu I was hearing. So we might want to neglect the criticism. So sometimes responding to a criticism gives more attention to the criticism. So instead of getting into that whole rabbit hole, so we might want to just neglect the criticism, ignore it, right? The Prabhupada would often say, the dogs may bark, but the caravan moves on, like that. And then the second way is we might let others speak for us. That is what Krishna did in this particular incident. Sahadev, it says in Mahabharata, Sahadev actually glorified Krishna. He spoke out about Krishna, about the fact that Krishna should be offered the Agra Puja. And then after Shishupal criticizes in Mahabharata, it says Bhishma, Bhima, Sahadev, many of these people, they spoke against Shishupal. And so we can let others speak, right? That is one way to deal. And then in other cases, we may want to respond to the criticism. We may want to actively respond to the criticisms. So that is what Krishna eventually did in this case, right? He chopped the head of Shishupal using his Sudarshan Chakra. And what Prabhupada also did on many occasions. So Prabhupada actually, I saw this video. I think it was um, uh, Yogeshwar Prabhu. He said Prabhupada lived a good fight, or maybe it was Mahatma Prabhu. Right? So Prabhupada often would use criticism as an opportunity to preach. So when someone would criticize him for his worldwide outreach and say, especially in India, oh, what these white people, can do for our glorious Hindu culture. What can these Westerners do for our glorious Hindu culture? Prabhupada would be like, he would completely thrash such arguments, and then he would ask his disciples to respond to such arguments with letters and things like that, and publish such responses in newspapers or BTG magazines and so on. So some of these criticisms Prabhupada did respond to. He did take action against them. So how we respond to criticism will vary depending on time, place, and circumstance. But yeah, there are various ways we can respond to criticism based on a long-term vision of doing good to everyone around us and having a healthy spiritual life. So yeah, with that, I'll end here. That's all I had to say. So if there are any reflections, feedback, please. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
You were talking about how a devotee is averse to fault finding.
Mm.
You have to be very careful to not find fault. But I was thinking that a devotee doesn't really have to extraneously be careful or this and that every time something comes up. I mean, just by serving the devotees, wouldn't it be that, especially a pure devotee, that the tendency to find fault would not occur as much? I mean, we can also, like you might, some people like to criticize others, just like the way they look, or you could see somebody and it's like a whack-a-mole. You try to beat down your own mind every time you try to criticize somebody. But if you're actually on the path of devotional service, serving a pure devotee, isn't automatically, you don't have to endeavor separately for if you think, okay, I'm criticizing somebody, this means that I'm not on the path, correct? Isn't that like an all-encompassing one-stop solution to the problem of criticism, just being engaged in the service and appreciating the devotees in general, as opposed to like being very careful of every single thought that comes in your mind? Isn't that correct?
So yes, Prabhu, definitely so one thing I would say is merely being on the path doesn't guarantee that our lower tendencies immediately go away. So our lower tendencies will be there. It's like Prabhupada said, right? I can see the fan here, uh, Donald Prabhu's fan, right? So Prabhupada would often give the analogy of a fan. So when you switch off a fan, although the electricity is cut off from the fan, it still rotates for some time before coming to a complete halt. So similarly, even when we understand that yes, we should not give in to our lower tendencies, especially like fault finding and things like that, and we take to the path of bhakti, still those strong tendencies are there from our pre-Krishna conscious life, and they may manifest themselves again and again. So in that perspective is what I said, we should be consciously aware. So there are four levels, right? There are four levels of, I would say, consciousness in general. So there is unconscious incompetence, in the sense that those who are not on the path for say they are like unconsciously criticizing. They don't even know. It has become so ingrained in them that they are unconsciously criticizing others. And then we come to the path, and then we realize that uh, you know conscious incompetence, right? We become conscious of our incompetence, that we start realizing that okay, I'm trying to find faults here. I should hold myself back. And then when we practice that more and more, we come to a level of uh, conscious competence. That is where we now have an ability, that inner control on ourselves, to be able to really control our tendency to fault finding. That is the third. And then the final level is what a pure devotee is at, where we all aspire to be, is unconscious competence. So just like on the lower spectrum, you have somebody who is unconsciously criticizing. On the entirely other spectrum, the highest spectrum, we are unconsciously glorifying others. Like it becomes a second nature to us to see good in others. So definitely what you said is definitely true. But then just being on the path doesn't guarantee overnight. It guarantees that our lower tendencies will be conquered by Krishna. But that may not happen immediately. Krishna will put us through tests. Krishna will really test our resolve, whether we really want to get over fault finding. And Krishna will keep giving such tests. And when he thinks that, yes, this person is ready, then he'll completely take it out. And that time we reach the level that you spoke about, Prabhu. So yeah, sorry if that, I hope that made sense.
It does. I was thinking it's like you talked about unconscious, you know, continuance on the path that you're on, whether it's fault finding or good qualities.
Mm.
A habit, right? Developing a habit. You develop habits by practice, and then the habits become second nature. Just like criticism can become second nature, so much so that you become unconscious, you're always criticizing somebody. In the same way, pure devotion can also be a habit that you're totally averse to criticizing people. It's just something that's second nature. But we always have to work on that. You know, if we see like something that's then you have to kind of look at yourself, be conscious of your own behavior, and that way you can actually correct whatever, you know, fault you have. You can criticize yourself first instead of criticizing others, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. So yes, Krishna Chandra Prabhu. We can't hear you, Prabhu. You're muted.
Hare Krishna, thank you for calling upon me. I just a reflection, not a question. So when Krishna utilizes the Sudarshan chakra to end Shishupal and his offenses, so what comes to my mind is that this is a very expedient method of dealing with aparad, because there was no bloodshed. So I feel similarly when we are in a situation where we feel the need to answer, if there really is no other way of dealing it with, I guess it would be a last resort, because the other methods you mentioned are better way of dealing with it. So it should be done with finesse. It should be done in a sense that it's expedient and there's no figurative bloodshed, in the sense that, like, you don't want to use vitriol, you don't want to become incendiary, you want to just be very, very effective with your words to just end the discussion immediately with truth and with all that on your side.
Absolutely. It requires finesse. Totally agree. Thank you, Prabhu. Bhima Prabhu has thoughts.
Haribol Prabhu,
Hare
thank
Krishna.
you also for calling upon me. Let me see what I got the time here. Okay. I think personal experience, and everybody has these experiences, that if we're happy within, if we are fulfilled, if we are engaged, immersed in our relationship with Krishna and Guru and the we will not find the tendency to criticize others.
Mm.
We will view everyone with compassion. When somebody does something wrong, it's sort of like, you might, hold out your hand and touch the shoulder of a child ready to walk out into the street. When people do things wrong, even to the extent of Shishupal, they must be corrected. But like you said, the finesse comes from compassion, and compassion comes from realizing the compassion that Krishna has for us, that our whole life is filled with Krishna's compassion. He gives us, he surrounds us. This is an ocean of his mercy. And when you're with the devotees, you actually, sort of like you wake up to the fact that you're surrounded with an ocean of compassion. And so it just becomes natural that you reflect that compassion back. So the tendency to criticize, as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, I believe it was him who said, when I find a fault, it's because I have 1,000 in myself. We shouldn't even criticize ourselves. We should just correct ourselves. And we should go to Krishna to correct ourselves and ask Krishna to do whatever is necessary to make us see straight. Because we know from Shastra and from the purer devotees, we know what's right.
Yep.
We're constantly clued into what's right. And if we ourselves are open to forgive ourselves, because Krishna is always in a moment. His goodness is so large. His ocean of goodness and love and compassion is so large that he instantly wipes away all our sins, just washes it away. In a moment, he's ready to forgive us long before we have even sinned or turned against him.
Yep.
Or offended another. And all we got to do is just always remember that he's with us at all times and be happy and joyful with that. And in that joy and happiness, we can use that compassion to help others, not criticize them, not drag them down, because we ourselves are feeling lifted. Thank you very much, Prabhu, for your wonderful class. Hare Krishna.
Beautiful reflection. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah, who even has the time to criticize? If you're engaged in service nicely, there shouldn't be time for that, for those things. Okay. Is it darshan time? Yeah, it is. Jai, we're going to be seen by the Lord. We'll take darshan. Please turn on your cameras. Thank you, Vanisha. Thank you. Bhima Prabhu, everybody's waiting for your camera to turn on. Where's your finesse?
Pay attention to the deities, Prabhu. The deities.
Shri Radha Murida Gaura Chanchasa Bhagavan Ki. Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Ragasya Shri Shri Radha Mulida Gaurachandran Swami Bhagavan Ki
Jai Hare Krishna. Welcome to the Afterglow, dear devotees. Jagannath Gopal Prabhu, you have a few minutes?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Dana Krishna's Radharani, welcome to the Afterglow. Did you just join to say Hare Krishna, or did you listen to class?
Yes. Hare Krishna. I'm just so grateful for you all. And it doesn't feel the same if I don't come and say Hare Krishna. So thank you.
Nice. Thank you, Dana. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Anyone wants to speak? Please. Sunday, we're all going to the temple today to chant and dance in front of the Lord in the association of the devotees. Krishna Chandra, you come into the temple?
Yes, I always
Good.
endeavor to come to the temple.
Good. We'll dance together then.
Jai. I look forward to that, Prabhu, definitely.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, Jagannath Gopal Prabhu, then please summarize and give us some final instructions for today. Look at Gautam Ghosh. He's ready to receive the instruction. Look at him.
I mean, to summarize, we discussed about this subtle tendency in us to express a certain fact in the in the spirit of what it really is not. And we see Shishupal, how he's serving as an example of that in terms of finding faults with Krishna and taking the facts about Krishna and distorting them completely.
It's called passive aggressive, right? When you're saying things in such a way, like in an innocent way seemingly, but in reality you are insulting and attacking.
Yes.
Passive aggressive. Yeah.
And then we saw the background of how about Shishupal and Krishna, and how Shishupal killed. Krishna killed Shishupal using Sudarshan Chakra. And then we spoke about criticism, how it is inside of us. There is a skeptic and cynic inside of us, about whom we should be mindful, and then we should have a focus on glorifying and seeing the good in others. And outside of us, how we handle criticism. That is three ways we could either neglect the criticism, or let others speak for us, or respond to the criticism in an active way.
Sudarshan Chakra type response.
Yes. But as everyone mentioned, to be engaged in a seva that is fulfilling to our hearts is important. That is a very essential part of bhakti, being engaged in a seva. And being engaged in a seva, so what I have experienced in my own Krishna conscious life, even being engaged in a seva, where sometimes has given me pride, even now for that matter, has given me pride, and that pride kind of has resulted in me trying to find faults in others. So yes, engaging in seva is also extremely important, but at the same time, we can be a little mindful of how we are thinking, and that way we can get most nourishment out of the seva that we are doing. So yeah.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yes,
Jagannath Gopal Prabhu. This tendency to criticize that is within us, what's the proper way to apply it? We understand that the service is the antidote, the appreciation is the antidote, but how do we apply? Maybe there's a way we can apply that tendency to criticize.
Definitely. We can we can try to refute those who are going against Krishna. That is one way we can dovetail that tendency to criticize, right? So again, it has to be done with finesse, as Krishna Chandra Prabhu said. Like it does not have to be done in a spirit of I am better than you kind of a thing, but it can be done in a spirit of yes, I I'm following this path, and somebody who may be not who may not be following our path and is trying to criticize, we might try to refute them, we might try to find faults in their arguments, not find faults with them as a person, but find faults with the arguments, finding faults with the ideology that takes us away from Krishna. So in that sense, we can apply the tendency to criticize. But then again, it's very deep. Again, going deeper, the tendency to criticize, if it's born out of envy, then it's very tough to dovetail it in the right spirit. So when it is born of envy, that, oh, I am better than them, and or why are they doing so well? Let me refute their philosophy. Why are they doing so well in the world? That tendency to criticize born out of envy is a tough one, is a very tough nut to crack. So yeah, that's all I'll say. But it can be dovetailed. It can be dovetailed if we have the right spirit. So
Yeah.
yes.
I was thinking of a bhakti debate club. We don't do that in bhakti, right? We're in agreement.
Yes. Prabhupada actually was asked once, what is your favorite sport? So one of Prabhupada's disciples, Vamandev Prabhu, was mentioning. Prabhupada was asked, what is your favorite sport? Prabhupada said, debating.
Yeah. And one time they asked Prabhupada, how do you debate? And Prabhupada, they said, how do you always come out victorious from a debate? And Prabhupada said, I find a weak point and I keep pushing on it. And I stick to it. And I keep pushing right there. I find that point and I just stick to it. The weak point. That's a little tip from Prabhupada, how to debate. But we don't do that here. We're all here to glorify Krishna.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jagannath Gopal Prabhu. Krishna Chandra and Bhima, your hands are raised. Would you like to debate? Bhima versus Krishna Chandra. Let's see.
Prabhuji, I don't want to debate anyone, definitely. I just had a thought. So one of the things I think is what causes people to offense. It's really just the desire to be the supreme controller or the supreme enjoyer. Like in Shishupal's case, he wanted to be the enjoyer. He wanted to enjoy the Rukmini over instead of Krishna. That's probably the root desire. But anyway, so I think ultimately it's just Sharanagati, surrender, that will be the ultimate antidote against that.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you, Krishna Chandra. Okay, Bhima Prabhu lowered his hand. Okay. All right. Okay, Dana Krishna's Radharani said Hare Krishna. Our yagya can be completed. Thank you very much, dear devotees. We love you. We need you. Thank you again, Jagannath Gopal. Hare Krishna. We love you. Haribol.
Hare Krishna.